What's up, everyone? This is Niyi Adewale, host of the Akaba Home Financial Freedom Mastermind Group. This group meets virtually every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the members of this group are committed to achieving financial freedom well before the traditional retirement age. So in this podcast, you are going to get VIP access to the conversations we have about different forms of investment and creative ways to get your dollars working harder for you than you originally worked to obtain those dollars. I'm so happy to have Elisabeth Curtis joining us today. Elisabeth is a house hack expert, a published author, Airbnb ambassador, and all-around rock star that has successfully made the transition from middle school teacher to serial entrepreneur. Elisabeth, we're happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here this evening.
Come on now. And you've been house hacking since way before the term was popular. I thought I've been doing it for a long time until I met you. And you mentioned that you've been doing it since you were 18. Do you mind just digging into how you even got into house hacking and what inspired you?
Sure. It's funny because the first time someone said you should get into house hacking, I was like, really? Yeah, tell me all about it. And then I'm like, wait, yeah, I have been doing this for a long time. I just really found it out of need. To be totally transparent with everyone, I was part of that subprime lending market where the bank said I could afford some house that I could not actually afford. So at a very young age, I wanted to buy a house. And I remember thinking, okay, I've got to have good credit, I've got to have a job, and I've got to have a down payment. So at the time, I worked part-time as an autistic therapist, which for those of us that do education, we know that that doesn't bring in much money. So very little job. I was a full-time and actually a double-time student at the College of Charleston. So I did 36 hours a week. So that was pretty much my full-time job. And then at the end of the day, I did have good credit for what you could for an 18-year-old, but there's, not a lot of credit there. And I had no down payment, but my roommate in college actually went on a awesome spring break vacation to a cruise. And I'm like, how did you afford this? She said, oh, I just went down to the financial aid office, told them I needed $30,000 for housing, and they paid for my rent for the next year. And I'm like, come here real quick. So I went down to financial aid office and got a student loan for $30,000, let it season for about 2 months, and that was my down payment. So to say that I was underqualified to buy a house puts it very modestly. There is no one that should have given me a house, but that's part of the reason I kind of wound up in kind of a shark mortgage, just was in a bad position, realized, I can't afford this. What am I going to do? So I also couldn't afford to rent because rent prices were just absolutely astronomical. So I'm like, well, now I have to buy a house. Found a cute little townhouse, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, in a okay side of town, possibly decent side of town, now gentrified side of town, if you catch my drift. But I was like, this is perfect. Great size. Best part about it, it was $87,000 and kind of a handyman special. So I fixed it up good enough. And my first listing that I ever had that was house hacking was on Craigslist. And it was $50. Here's my address. Knock on the door 24/7. If the ad is up, I've got a room for you. Thank goodness I never had more than 2 people show up at once. So I rented the 2 rooms and then ended up getting a long-term roommate in 1 room. And she paid the mortgage and all the bills. But I loved my Craigslist room. So I made it up at the front of the house. So as soon as you walked in, they came right inside. People thought I was crazy, but at least, the Craigslist room, it was kind of short. I didn't even know what a short-term rental was. Airbnb, I don't even think existed back then. It definitely was not a vacation rental. But it worked out really well. I realized that, this is kind of fun. I like this. And so I kind of became the crash pad, for lack of a better term. In fact, the College of Charleston kind of caught wind of it, and they started reaching out to me for people that um, were staying in dorms, but for whatever reason, the dorm had an issue, or like one girl reserved a dorm, but when she got there, someone else was already staying in it. So they started sending me random students that needed housing from anywhere from one night to one semester. And it blossomed from there. Um, Sold the house, moved into my second home when I graduated college. And that is when I first heard of Airbnb. Well, my roommate moved with me. And it was only a 2-bedroom. So I didn't have any space for an Airbnb, but I had a pull-out sofa. So my very first Airbnb listing ever was for the pull-out sofa in the living room.
And
And for
Elisabeth,
20 bucks,
I gotta jump in for a second. So
go
we're
ahead.
gonna talk about this pull-out sofa. All right. I want to hear about this and how what the occupancy rate was on the pull-out sofa. But before that piece, what you
It
mentioned
sounds
before,
embarrassing.
hey, you've come a long way since. But what you mentioned before is incredible, right? At 18 years old, to have the courage to go out and take out a loan and even know, like, hey, I'm going to go through the process, fill all this paperwork out, and sign my name. I would have been shaking in my boots, right? Let alone using a $30,000 loan to do that. In my mind now that I understand the benefits of real estate, man, if I can go back to college, I'd be taking out whatever loan they'd give me, buying up as many properties as possible. But what was going through your mind at that age when you pulled that money and bought that house? Were you thinking like, man, this is a lot of responsibility? Or you were like, hey, I'll make it work?
I figured it was more responsible than my roommate's like 12-day cruise to Antarctica. So I was one up there. But really, it just came from the necessity. I needed somewhere to live. The dorm was awfully expensive, and I was only going to be there as a freshman, so I had to figure out a plan. And actually, the part of the story that I left out there was that season time, because I couldn't immediately get a loan. It had to be seasoned in my bank account. I actually lived in my car for about 3 months with no AC in Charleston. But I just kept telling myself, this is going to be worth it, because now is when I can handle sleeping in my car. Now I'm 31. I think I would be like in a wheelchair if I slept the way that I did at 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just, I had to. There was no other choice. Um, it's really all it comes down to. It's not like I'm sitting here thinking, hey, should I buy a house or should I not? It was like, I have nowhere to live, so I'm buying a house.
And
My
to that
realtor thought I
point,
was crazy. I didn't even have
yeah,
a car at the time.
yeah, and to that point, I think what you just mentioned is something that we can all take a lesson from, right? A lot of people go through different difficulties and struggles and try to run away from it, but you've got to lean into that and try to harness that energy to really accelerate your life, right? You could have taken it a different way and said, hey, I'm going to go back and live with parents or things of that nature, but you're like, no, I'm going to figure this out, find a way to continue growing. And then you were able to flip that house into this next one that you were talking about, right? With the sofa Airbnb. Could you please go into that story of how that did for you?
So, the sofa was actually one that an ex-boyfriend had and threw out of his house and was trash. So it wasn't the nicest, but for 20 bucks a night, someone will sleep on your sofa. Um, and that house again was another reno project. I've never bought a house move-in ready, just because the more I learned about houses and the more I watched HGTV and the more that I wanted to be this entrepreneur so bad, I learned that you could look at it kind of short term and look at those renters coming in and having a roommate, or having, my Craigslist, or having Airbnb. Or you could look at it kind of the long term of the valuation of the house going up. And I just kept thinking, like, both of these make sense. Why do I have to pick one? So I always buy a house in distress, live in the mess. When it's not a mess, rent it out short term. And then when I feel like I've peaked out, the value in the area, I sell it. Which is ironically how we met, because now I'm selling my current home after
which
I
is
finally finished renovations here.
which is amazing, right? And you're doing it right. And I mean, I'm a fan, right? If I was in the market right now, personally, I'd be buying the home, but one of my clients is, and you did an amazing job with that home. And just to give everybody kind of a 10,000 foot view, right? Before we dive into the rest of the story, what does your portfolio look like today, as well as your management business? Could you just talk to that a little bit?
So my personal portfolio, what I own is the home that I'm sitting in right now, which hopefully I will not own after the 30th. And our new home, which we purchased, it is an extremely distressed property. It's been vacant for over 20 years. So we are doing full overhaul. In fact, this week we just replaced all of the floor joists. So quite the project. I'm wearing my new camper shirt only because I'm a nerd and should have worn something cuter. But my husband and I just bought a camper like 2 days ago that we're going to live in while we renovate the house ourselves, since it can't have utilities or anything yet. And then we also have a very tiny little cabin on the Georgia South Carolina border. So I like to joke around, we're not rich, we're not like rolling in the dough, but I'm like, look at our little microscopic empire. We have our little house, our tiny little cabin, and now a like 25 square foot itty bitty little camper. So I do not have the portfolio that I want to one day. However, what I have put a lot more emphasis on, as opposed to growing the portfolio, because for a while that was more of my drive. This is actually my ninth home that I've purchased. And like I said, I'm 31. So for a while I was acquiring. Now my focus is more about enjoying what I do have instead of wanting more. What do I want? Why do I want this house? What is it about this? Not just growing the wealth, but when I go home at night, what makes me happy? And also paying off all my debts. Like I said, I was a double time student at C of C. So I have 2 degrees from College of Charleston. Then I went and got my master's from the Citadel Military University. Then I went back for more schooling and got my teaching certificate. So I have a overwhelming amount of student loans that will be paid off once we sell this house. Our cars are paid off. I want to get to the point where I'm happy and I'm free. And then if I want to continue to grow, but growth I realized just wasn't what made me happy. But
Absolutely.
we're getting there one day, probably, maybe.
Hey, come on now.
Who knows?
And
The
and
more
the
I hang out in my little camper, the more I'm like, maybe I need less.
hey, it sounds good until they start putting in the flooring and the walls on that new property that you have. Then it's going to be right back to kind of building it out. And one of the things that was so interesting about your property, the reason that it kind of drew me and my client to it, is just the way you have it set up, the way that you're able to essentially, I believe you're living for free and potentially cash flowing on your property as well.
Yes. So since that first little condo that I bought, like I said, it was only 87,000. My mortgage with insurance and taxes and everything escrowed, my payments every month were $550. That sounds like so minuscule in today's market. When I was 18, that was just like this unsurmountable amount of money to like, how am I possibly ever going to come up with $550 every month? So I'm a little embarrassed now, but I guess, we all get there. And my long-term roommate, I ended up charging her $550. That's how I came up with the number. So she paid the mortgage. My Craigslist room paid all the bills, and I quickly learned how easy it was to live for free. And so I decided in that first house, I wouldn't move or I wouldn't ever have a house unless it paid for itself and ideally was cash flow positive. So, yes, here I am on house 9, still cash flow positive. Even our little camper, yes, we're going to live in it for about 3 months while we renovate. Yes, my husband and I love to travel. We love to camp. We go to music festivals. That's how we met. So we'll use it for that. But ultimately, the plan is also to Airbnb it once we're not living in it full time. The new house we're building, purposefully setting it up to where we live on the first floor and the basement apartment is going to be the best part of the house because that's where the roommates will be. Or sorry, the Airbnb guests. So yeah, every house, certainly I want it to pay for itself, ideally cash flow.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, which is kind of where I went wrong with the second house that I mentioned, my Airbnb sofa.
Yeah.
Airbnb sofas, high in demand, especially for 20 bucks a night. I think I peaked at like $50 a night and just thought I was rolling in the dough. I'm like making $2,000-3,000 a month off of a living room sofa. So then when my roommate moved out, I turned her room into my second Airbnb listing ever. That house, though, what I realized, and this was kind of when I was so worried about growth, I placed a lot of emphasis on what I wanted in a house. And I found this gorgeous home at the top of my budget, but I knew I could make it work. But then I kind of made myself house poor. Even with the sofa, even with the Airbnb room, I paid for most of my bills, but I wasn't living that freedom that I had before when my money was play money. And it was more of a long game. I only owned it for a year and a half. I was like, this is not a good plan. But I fixed it up. And when I sold it, so to give you a little background, my first house I bought for 87. I sold it for 101 after 4 years of being in college there. My second house, I bought it for 110, which was like the maximum of my budget. Again, it sounds silly now, but like that was just above and beyond what I thought I could ever have. And I sold it for 170 a year and a half later. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to make a combination, long game and short game. I want a house that I love. I want something that I will appreciate. I want something I can fix up. But I also need something that cash flows in the meantime because I do want to travel. I do want to have free time. And my dad, at a very, very young age, when I was a little kid, my nighttime stories were Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm.
I thought he was reading it for me. Apparently, he was reading it for himself. Both my parents come from pretty humble backgrounds and wanted the world for us. So I just remember getting on his lap. And I remember distinctly one time him talking about your biggest money pits and what do you spend money on, or it was something like that. And we read the whole series, so I don't even remember which book it was exactly. But he said, take it, make it what you love the most, and then make it make money. And I remember asking my dad, how is Bun Bun gonna make me money? That was my stuffed bunny.
And
So
fast forward to now, and now the houses that you're living in, which for a lot of people is your
it's my
largest
favorite thing.
expense, is making you money, which is incredible.
And it's not only my largest expense, it's not only my biggest asset, but it's my favorite thing. I love coming home. I love being home. I love seeing what I've created. I love seeing my husband and our dogs and just like and I'm safe here and I'm welcomed here. And that kind of just goes back to that mentality of when I didn't have a home and I fought so hard to have one. And now I'm so proud to have one. And yeah, so it now makes me money, but every asset or every liability that I have, rather, I've turned into an asset. My cars, even, I rent those on Turo. During COVID, I was teaching from home. I didn't need to go anywhere. Turo every single day. Our house we rent. Our camper that we bought for us, but we'll also rent. You know, anything that costs me money, I'm going to figure out a way to make it make money.
I love it. I love it. And Elisabeth, one of the things that we really wanted to dig into that we can't skip over is the fact that you were one of the first people to really start utilizing Airbnb, and you were doing it even before Airbnb existed, right? By renting out through Craigslist and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've reached the pinnacle of the short-term rental empire, right? By becoming an Airbnb ambassador with over 1,200 reviews and maintaining a 4.9 rating, which is incredibly difficult to do. Do you mind speaking to just some of the lessons you've learned along the way, the ups,
Mm-hmm.
the downs, and kind of when you were able to reach that point?
Yeah. So like I said, my first listing was the pull-out sofa. I have never really had an opulent, like amazing listing until more recently. And those are not ones that I own. So I think really what worked well with Airbnb for me was I'm giving you like everything I have. And I think people really saw that. Like they saw my heart and soul in it. I wasn't, checking in and you see this Taj Mahal, but when you check in, it's like me and hey, do you like red wine? I've got a bottle of Merlot open. Like, it just was very genuine. I quickly learned that I enjoyed it. I especially liked the cash flow. So I started hosting. This is my 9th year with Airbnb. I started in 2013 officially. And I always just had my spare rooms. I met my husband, and I had at that point a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. So I was in the master, pretty much made it my little cubby, had my TV, had my bathroom, had a mini fridge. And people thought I was so weird. They're like, you have this whole house and you like live in one room. I said, yeah, my guests live out there. And just kind of adapted my lifestyle to where it lended well to having guests, and people really enjoyed it. And then when my husband and I moved in together, we decided we wanted a little more separation. So I made the big jump and went with a basement apartment. And again, renovated it. We actually lived upstairs, renovated the basement, and then we moved into the basement and renovated upstairs. And everything I did with that house was with the guests in mind. If I have to make myself a little uncomfortable, maybe I park in the grass and I give them the nice driveway spot, or I let them come through this door that has the screen and looks nice and pretty, and I'll go around the backside to the kitchen entrance, and little things like that. But it worked well. Now we have our basement apartment here. We have our basement that we will have in the new house, and our new cabin is our first official like whole house listing. So what I've had is modest, but I've just had it for so long. I've been so established that Airbnb reached out to me about, I guess, a little over a year ago. And they said, Elisabeth, you refer more people to Airbnb than anyone else in your time zone. This was 2 Marches ago, actually. And I was like, I do? They said, yeah. Are you a realtor? Like, how are you bringing in all these leads? And I said, people just ask me why I do this. And I just tell them Airbnb saved me. It allowed me to not go into foreclosure with my first house. And that allowed me to grow wealth over time. I don't know how much more I could owe someone. I wouldn't have the life I do now at all, or the mentality or the work ethic or anything without Airbnb. And again, when they see how much I really truly believe in it, I think people just naturally said, hey, I'm behind on my mortgage. What do I do? Or one of my best friends, her husband was in a car wreck, broke his spine, couldn't work for years actually. And I'm like, well, hey, Airbnb saved me. Throw your spare room up there. And so they said, okay, if you're getting all of these leads organically, we need you. So they asked me I was the 6th ambassador ever hired. Now I believe there's 126 across the country.
Wow.
But I'm still kind of considered like the OG.
Hey, come on now. Definitely.
Yeah, there are four of us that do webinars for Airbnb, like not on our own, but through the company. And I'm one of those since I was one of the originals. I've been invited to meet different people. Catherine Powell, she's the head of hosting with Airbnb. Brian Chetsky, of course, the owner. I have direct contacts with Airbnb, which has allowed me to continue to grow. And then it just turned into other people saying, hey, I thought I could do this. This is way more work. Can you do it for me? And so now I co-host and I actually manage 32 properties, which is what allowed me to leave formal education in the classroom. I can still volunteer, I can still go in, I can still give them almost a better part of me. Not the tired, overworked, I've been grading papers all night, I'm, underworked and overpaid in every form and fashion. But now I can go in, I can say, listen, I'm here because I want to be, and here's the best part of me. And I think I do better for the school now. And so I haven't even lost anything that I've built up and that I've worked for and that I love.
That is pretty incredible. And it's a full circle moment because that was something that you were passionate about, which is giving back to the next generation and things of that nature. But it's hard to do that when, to your point, you're not financially set and you feel like, hey, I've got to work extra hours or do extra jobs to really make that income. But it sounds like you've been able to build such an amazing business through the short-term rentals, through hosting others, for others, co-hosting, as well as listing your own, that it's now allowed you to come back and give that energy to the next generation and hopefully inspire them to do more outside of the W-2 as well.
Oh,
And
even more so. I actually hosted a young entrepreneurs club at our school. For background on my school, I work in inner city, 99% African American. So high crime, high violence, not a very thriving area. I live almost walking distance to my school because I want to pour into this community. I've always lived close to my schools. I've always lived in, high poverty, high crime, Title I. And I always teach those kids, because I grew up in a very similar demographic. I said, just because you're here now doesn't mean you'll always be here. Just because you're homeless now doesn't mean that you won't have an empire in 10 years. And that sounds so far away, but it's not. If I could go back to me 15 years ago and say like, hey, one day you'll be on a webinar and you're going to be talking about finances, I would be sitting there going, I don't even have 2 pennies to rub together for heat. What do you mean finances? And so not only have I like hosted a little entrepreneurial group at my school, which is just kids who, anything. They want to make their own tennis shoe brand. They want to, be a chef, like whatever the case may be. Okay, great. How do we foster that? And then typically when they get older, they get to the high school level, my same students that I've had, I then hire them for my Airbnb business. Those are my housekeepers. Those are my kids that go around and pick up trash in the yard and trim the bushes. And, I'm not necessarily going to ask them to repair the HVAC, but I give them responsibilities and I pay them and I give them real jobs, so that they can too see like, hey, this is what it takes to run a house. This is what it takes to run a business. This is what it means to make your own money. And I've had a couple students tell me that was what changed their lives. One student in particular, he was the breadwinner for his entire family as the housekeeper for my Airbnbs in Charleston. So
wow.
I can teach them so much more than I could when I was stuck behind the textbook.
And Elisabeth, that's incredible. I love the fact that you're able to kind of get them that real world experience while they're still, learning and growing and things of that nature, and being able to actually have real money in hand to start to put that to the side for their investments and learn from you. I'm sure that's a great value to them. I have just 2 more things that I really wanted to touch on before we open it up to the group. First and foremost, thank you so much again for just giving back to us and telling us just a portion of your story. It's truly incredible and it's inspiring. But one of the things that you're also done is you're a published author. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the Millennial on Fire book that you helped co-author?
Yes. So Millennial on Fire is millennial, financially independent, and retiring early. The main author of the book is a wonderful friend of mine. He does Airbnbs. Actually, all four of us that co-authored, we all have Airbnbs. Um, but it's funny because when he was writing the book, all the three guys that I wrote it with, and including the main one, they're all military. And so I was kind of teasing him one time. I said, yeah, of course you guys get to retire early. You had free healthcare, you had free housing, you had, free meals. And we're just kind of messing around with him for it. And he goes, well, what about you? How'd you get here? I said, yeah, I went what you're supposed to do. Rack up $100,000 in college, drown yourself in debt, slave away at a bar at night while working a 9 to 5 during the day, like burn the candle at both ends. And he said, well, what would you tell other people to do? And so we just got in this awesome discussion, and he said, let's co-author the book. Let's do it. Let's make it a reality. And the whole point of the book is, if you want to retire early, figure out how to get there, make your plan. And the four of us have completely different plans. We have completely different backgrounds. We have different goals. So it's not really a how to retire early book, but it's a how are you going to retire early book. And I published it about 2 years ago. And then a year after I published, we had a little 1 year celebration party. And I realized I was the only one out of the four of us that wasn't retired. And I was like, wait a minute, I need to take my own advice. And so it's funny, I actually hosted a book talk, analysis, what have you, on Facebook. It was free. There was about 50 of us that did it. If anyone was ever interested, I'd be happy to do it again. It was discussion questions. We shared everything from different apps that we use to things that we've done, things that didn't work, things that did work. And I said, you know what? It's been a year since we've published. I'm literally teaching other people how to retire early. And I still slave away at a 9 to 5. And that's when I decided this is my last year teaching. It's my last year formally in the classroom. And here we all are, all four retired,
Nice.
officially retired.
Hey, well, that
Retired
was
to
the
me
dream.
doesn't mean not working. Retired to me means working because I want to and because what I do makes me happy. That's retired to me. Not like sipping pina coladas on the beach, but maybe one day.
Hey, come on now. We are all working toward that. And that's incredible to hear. And it's inspiring that you were able to do that in just a decade, 10 years, when typically it takes people 30, 40 years to hopefully retire. You were able to remain focused and craft a life that allowed you to do it in 10. That's incredible. And the last piece from me before we open it up to
Well,
the
hold on,
group,
my little plug
please.
in that, and
Mhm.
this is not because this is a house hacking webinar, but like honestly, my real plug in that, house hacking is what allowed me to do it. That's what you spend most of your money on. That's why you go to work, so that you can pay your bills.
True.
You got to go to work so that you can pay the mortgage. Well, if I don't have to pay the mortgage and I don't have to pay the bills, then I don't have to go to work. And that's really how I worked. It was the backwards uh, plan through house hacking.
It's huge. Seriously one of the greatest things that you can do, especially early on before you get, comfortable with some of the things that come with making more income in life. If you can house hack and get used to that and start building, man, major win, major win. And the last question for me, Elisabeth, before opening it up to the rest of the group is, how can we help you? I know you've been teaching courses. You are an Airbnb ambassador. You're continuing to give back to the community around you as well as around the world. What can this community, the Akaba Home Financial Freedom Mastermind Group community, do for you to help you with some of your goals?
I love that. One of my current goals is I was, like I said, the number one person in my time zone for referrals. Because Airbnb is so much more popular now, There's people who have podcasts, YouTube channels, etc. I'm not sure exactly where I stand. I know I'm not at the top of the list, but I'm still pretty high ranked. So I would love if any of you guys are interested in Airbnb or know someone that is. I have referral links, of course. They come with different perks, whatnot. So if you ever had someone that was interested, I guess sharing those would be great. And really, the biggest thing for me is learning. It almost made me laugh earlier when you're like, you're at the pinnacle. And I'm like, I guess I am, but at the same time, all day when I'm cleaning houses, I don't think like I'm at the pinnacle. I'm like, yeah, but I'm over here mopping the floors. Or I listen to podcasts all day long of other people. I even listen to like Airbnb nightmare podcasts just to think, okay, how can I avoid this? How can I grow more? Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, I love his podcast. How can I continue to be better? Because no one has all the answers, or no one has the perfect method that works for every person. So, like, even when I did the book study for Millennial on Fire, I learned so much from people who were there for me to teach. I'm like, oh no, I wonder if they realize that the students are the best teachers. So if you guys have, whatever idea it may be, I would love to just continue to grow, especially with so much stuff that changes. I just learned today about a new app called Sniff Spot, and it is where you rent your lawn to people with dogs. So especially like people that are traveling, they can't find a dog park. They want somewhere to take their dog, especially if it's fenced, and just kind of let them run around. You can rent your lawn by the hour for dogs.
That's very interesting. I would assume you would just go to like, that's weird. Wow. Okay.
Well, I'll give you a great example. So my husband and I, where we live, we're right here on the south side of Decatur. So there's not a lot of dog parks near us. The closest ones are like in real Decatur, I call it, what people think of when they think of Decatur. And that's a 20-minute drive for us. If we take them to Stone Mountain Park, that's actually closer, but they have to be on the leash at all times. My favorite dog park is way over in Alpharetta, which takes me like 45, 50 minutes to get to. Sorry, Pooch, love you, but like, no, run around the yard. And so I guess for some people, they like the camaraderie of other people. They want their dog to be socialized. I don't know, but apparently it's a thing. And a lot of times, I think the biggest thing that I hear people say when they hear house hacking is the first thing is like, oh, that would never work in my house. I have kids, I have pets, I have whatever the case may be. There's always like a reason why you can't house hack. And I don't think people realize house hacking is a whole lot more than Airbnb-ing your house while you're there. So you can rent your closet space, your extra storage, your garage on neighbors, or you can rent it for like someone to come in and film a movie, which you would think, oh, my house is definitely not like movieable. When they do documentaries and they're sitting there with the blurry background, that could be your house. And they don't even see it, and you still get paid. It blows my mind. And so I definitely have my feelers out, always looking for what's another way to squeeze a couple more pennies out of this, because every dime that I make from this house means it's less of a liability, more of an asset, and gets me closer to my goals.
I
So
love it.
any of those, please send my way.
Done and done. I love it. And Elisabeth, we're now going to open it up to the rest of the group to ask your questions. We got Elisabeth for about 20 minutes.
Hi, and thank you so much for this information. One question I have is, how did you go about finding your tenants or your guests, or what platforms or did you use?
So the first one that I ever used was Craigslist, and I guess that kind of set the mood. Craigslist has no vetting. It is not made for finding tenants. I just literally put my address on Craigslist and said, show up with $50.
Okay.
And so I know a lot of times today there's a lot more conversation of how do you vet the guests, how do you make sure they're the right fit, and of course I've worked on optimizing that, but it depends on the listing also. So like for we rent actually one of our spare rooms upstairs. My husband and I do. My poor roommate right now is probably like, why is she so loud? But we do more screening with those because you are in our space. Is it going to be the right fit? Are you okay with our lifestyle? Are you okay with our dogs? With our cabin, we're a little more lax. You're off on your own, but I also want to make sure you're a good guest because I don't want my cabin to be destroyed. Versus our basement apartment, I let anyone and everyone stay. I figure if I'm right upstairs, I can kind of keep an eye on things, and I want to make as much money as possible. So my goal with the basement is to pay off all of the house expenses. With that, I don't want to be picky. I want to get more money. I prefer profit over, that kind of safety net. Our upstairs room is more for play money. So when we're tighter on cash, we rent it out, but I'm going to be a little tighter on the renter. So as far as platforms, I have tried every platform I've ever come across. Hands down, every time, Airbnb just tends to be my favorite. It just fits what I have to offer best. And because I'm so invested in it, we also do like Airbnb experiences and kayaking tours and hiking tours and my webinar, and with everything else, I just found that it was better to invest in one that really fit me versus kind of spreading myself thin and not being good at anything.
How would you suggest like getting started in house hacking? Like say for instance, you don't want to pay a mortgage that's over 2,300 or whatever it is, and the interest rates are high and so forth. I see, like right now I'm starting to do my first Airbnb with my first property, but that's different. But house hacking, it's like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how would you go about starting that and looking at like, oh, this is the mortgage. How fast can I get someone in there?
So when you think of house hacking, there's so many different ways to do it. If you want to hack your primary residence, maybe you want to have a roommate. Maybe you don't want a roommate. Maybe you travel a lot and you're going to rent it while you're out of town. When my husband and I leave town, we rent our entire house and in one weekend can pay our entire mortgage. Does that happen every month? No. But if we're not going to be here anyway, I just lock our bedroom. We have 3 other bedrooms that are upstairs. Rent those out. Do you want to rent out? You can literally rent everything from your garage to your yard to your pool to whatever. So my biggest piece of advice would be what matches what you have to offer. Is your house something that someone could stay the weekend in? Is it not really set up that way, but you could just have a roommate? Is it not good for any of that? And like I said, sniff spot, apparently you just rent your yard by the hour. So what do you have to offer? And also, what are your goals? You're not going to probably make $2,300 a month on sniff spot. Sorry, I don't know. Maybe. But if that is your hard, fast goal, maybe you figure out, okay, I need to rent my house 10 days a month to meet that. Where can you go for 10 days? How can you make yourself maybe a little inconvenienced? But the point is to meet that goal of paying your mortgage. For myself, I have always made myself a bit more uncomfortable. Now that I have a husband and we are recently married, we are a little more on the comfort side, but I also have another income to rely on. So there's that balance there. But if you know that you have to make $2,300 a month, then you just look around and figure out, well, how is that going to happen? like I said, for me, it was out of absolute necessity. One of my best friends, in fact, Mike, who co-authored the book for me, he was the main author on Millennial on Fire. He is a multimillionaire. He has a lot of money invested in Tesla. He's been retired for a few years. He still, to this day, sleeps on a pull-out sofa. I mean, not a futon, rather, not even a pull-out sofa. He sleeps on a futon in his bedroom, in his living room, because his bedroom rents for so much money on Airbnb that he would rather sleep on a futon. And I'm like, you could afford $1 million house that you could probably buy cash and be fine, but you'd rather have a small, modest house and still sleep on a futon. But for him, his goal, and he's in his mid to late 30s, is to never have to work again. He retired. He never wants to have to enter the workforce. So if that's your goal, you just make it happen. I hope that answered.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Elisabeth, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate how humble and honest you were with your story. It's like super awesome to hear. So one of the questions I had was, so I'm starting out with house hacking. I just bought a fourplex. Nee helped me do that. And it's been great so far, setting up 2 Airbnbs, and I have 1 long-term tenant. One of the questions I had was, if you could give out maybe like one piece of advice, right, for someone starting out with Airbnb or even starting out with house hacking, what would that piece of advice, right? Or even on the flip side, what's one thing that maybe I shouldn't do, right, starting out with B&B or with house hacking? Would love to hear you speak to that.
Well, first off, congratulations. That is actually one of my goals. Is I really want like a triplex or a quadplex, even a duplex. So that's really, really awesome. You're living my dream. And then I'll do you one better. I'll give you my biggest do and my biggest don't. My biggest piece of advice is the most important aspect of your listing is that it's clean. Everything else is secondary. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. It doesn't matter how well it's done. Nothing else matters unless it is spotless. Like every single detail, completely spotless. Because I'll tell you, people see the photos, they know what they're getting. They'll read the description, they know what they're getting. When they get there, the cleanliness is really the biggest variable. My listings are not that nice. Obviously, like they're not overwhelming, but they're spotless. And that's how I have so many good reviews. And actually today I tipped the scale. I'm at 1,301 review.
That's awesome.
And the reviews though aren't saying like, wow, this phenomenal property. They say, Elisabeth responds fast and it's spotless. Number 1. My biggest don't, and is this your first home?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so this will come in even more handy for you. I had to learn it the hard way. I still sometimes struggle with it the hard way because I do house hack. Don't get so caught up in emotion that it stops you from making money. Things will get broken. Things will get damaged. That brand new paint that you just painted will get chipped. The brand new bed that you just bought will break. Things get run down, things get dirty. You're going to come in and see trash at some point, everywhere. You're going to have good guests, you're going to have bad guests. It's a part of the business. Just like if you went to a 9-to-5, some days are awesome, some days suck. So don't get so emotional. Don't let it rile you up. It is what it is. You deal with the problem and then you continue on. And sometimes, at least for myself, I'm like, I poured my heart into it and then they just threw trash on the floor. And so just understand, it is a business. You want it to make money. And by no means am I saying let people destroy your stuff. But if someone comes in and they're saying like, hey, these towels suck. Just take it for face value. Don't say like, well, I use the towels and I love the towels. The towels dry me out. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I think I see that a lot with hosts. I see it a lot with people that house hack, but I especially see it with first-time home buyers because this is your baby. You've worked so hard to get it.
Definitely.
So just realize it's an end game.
For sure.
Take the emotion, love your house, love everything you do with it. When people see that love, they usually reciprocate with love, and it happens, and it'll get messed up. And when it does, you move on. Just like when you have a bad day at work, you still get up the next day and go back.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to try to not, put too much emotion into it, because I've put a lot of hard work, elbow grease, and money at this point. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome, and congrats again.
Thanks. I'm going to try to, make it work. So we'll see. I'll try to keep you updated.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
So
And if you need an Airbnb link, let me throw my plug in there. Anyone who uses my link from now until the end of the year gets a free professional photography shoot.
Okay. If you would have called me maybe like a month ago, because I think I might have already used these.
Hey, come on now.
No worries then.
Yeah.
Well,
but I'd love to hear like any courses or like, if you do local meetups. I heard you're in Decatur. I just moved in College Park. So anything like that, I'd love to hear. Yeah.
The other thing that's really cool that you can do with a quad is you can rent like 1 unit, you can rent 2 units, or you can rent 3 units, and definitely set up your listing to where people have that flexibility.
Yeah.
So you'll have
definitely.
a lot of listings. You'll have like 6 different listings for this one, for that one, or for both. But it can definitely help you maximize those profits.
Definitely. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
And we got about 5 minutes left, but I know Alpha had a question. Then we got one in the chat. So Alpha.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Damon kind of asked the question that I was gonna ask, so I already kind of got the answer. So I kind of let you continue on. But yeah, I'm working on my first house hack. I live in the basement also, and I'm renting out upstairs. It's a nice area, so I kind of get you as like I'm gonna accommodate the guests. I'm gonna drive through the back. I get the nice front, and my question is just gonna be, what did you do to kind of make sure that your listing was still constantly getting booked? And you just said just keep it clean. So I got that noted, and that's what I really got.
Well, I'll give you an extra little tip in there then. You mentioned you're in the basement. Give your guests the nicest. I will tell you, if you come to my house, all the towels that we use are stained. All the sheets that we sleep on are stained. They're great. They're imperfect. They're fine. But it's what the guest, maybe they got makeup on it or something else. And now that's what my husband and I use. And so people sometimes laugh at us. They're like, we come in your room and you have holes in the sheets. We go in the basement and you have like 1,000 thread count. I'm like, yeah, best of the best for the guests. If they scratch a pot, who cares? It still cooks. That's what we use. So if you're willing to, I even consider that kind of a way of hacking, because when I buy it, it's a business expense. When it's trash, it comes to me. It's still perfectly usable. And then I don't have to buy my own. And then when I buy a replacement, there's another business expense.
Actually, there's a couple of pots that I retired to my area because my designer said we can't use those pots. I said these work perfectly fine. So yeah, I've been doing the same thing, but
exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Elisabeth, the last question we have for you, and again, thank you for hanging with us, is do you think you make more house hacking with a long-term tenant or with a short-term tenant?
1,000% for me, short term. However, it depends on the property. 2 perfect examples. Our basement right now, we're really busy. I'm trying to scale my business. I don't have time to do constant turnovers. And because it's a basement, we're not bringing in an immense amount of money. So for me to hire a housekeeper kind of defeats the purpose of house hacking. So we've decided to bring in some kind of midterm tenants, these nurses. They've stayed with us off and on for like 9 months now. So for us, it made more sense to do longer term. With my cabin, it's in rural, middle of nowhere. It's not even a 1 bedroom, it's just got a loft. I think we did a rental analysis long term, and I think we'd get like $400 a month. That hurts to say, because short term, we usually bring in about $3,000 a month. So it might depend on your listing, but typically 9 times out of 10, short term has certainly been more profitable. But it's also more work. So then you've got to ask yourself, do you have time to put in the work? Do you have the energy? Do you want to fill up shampoo bottles and make beds and vacuum? Or do you maybe not have the ability to do those things, and kind of analyze not only what's going to make the most money, but what fits your lifestyle the best? And that changes. Like I said, right now, my husband and I are busy. We're doing longer term. When it's summertime, there's no way I would have a long-term tenant in our basement. I make way too much money for it to ever be worth having a long-term in that peak
Agreed.
season.
Yep.
Yeah, so even seasons can change. Your lifestyle can change. If we're renovating the new house, I can't be here cleaning. But during COVID, absolutely, I was doing nothing but short term. 2020 was actually my most profitable year because everyone else got scared and said, oh my God, COVID, there's no travel. Well, what happened was people that had to travel had nowhere else to go. So I was renting my basement out for like $180 a night and could not get a break in between guests. It was just back to back to back to back to back. And I would raise it on the weekends and still was back to back. But I was also working from home. So for me to, wake up and change some sheets, that was simple.
Absolutely. And Elisabeth, this has been incredible. We truly appreciate the many insights and just the genuine advice that you've given tonight. And I have no doubt that the people on the line got a lot of value, and that those that listen in the future will get a lot of value. And we'll definitely put links to all of your content in the show notes. And Elisabeth, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you, and we wish you an awesome rest of this evening.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate being here. I love spreading the knowledge. I want to see people prosper, and however that may look to you might be different. But for me, house hacking has certainly given me the life that I can say I love. So I hope it does for all of you as well.
Thank you, Elisabeth.
Thank you.